information, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Abata Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and also on 3news.com. We're live as well on YouTube, as on TV3 Ghana on YouTube and also on 3 News on the YouTube as well. We're live on 3FM 92.7. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, we'll bring you an update on the legal suit and matters arising regarding the ECOWAS nationals who have sued the government of Ghana over what they term wrongful detention, while the President and Foreign Affairs Minister have indicated they have been in that there's a process to have them repatriated to their home countries. Lawyers have been also defending that particular position of their clients. Also, we'll give an update tonight because the CMB Abuja market is under threat, a phenomenon which has led to the Member of Parliament for the area, that's the Kote constituency, to petition and in fact call upon the Economic and Organized Office, Crime Office, EOCO, to investigate this alleged sale of this land to private developers in the last 8 years. Stay with us, we'll get an update on this particular issue because there's also a strike by the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEWO. They have declared an indefinite nationwide strike, citing government's delay in addressing long-standing issues of the non-teaching staff, some of which include conditions of service. More on this and other matters here on Ghana Tonight. You're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Connect with us. Let's get talking. Dr. Zaneto Rollins and Professor Balfour Ajiman are going to be joining us. We'll have a conversation on these matters on the table tonight. Let's settle for Ghana Breeze.
Lawyers of 11 West African nationals deported from the United States have told an Accra High Court that, contrary to claims by President Mahama and Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, they remain in detention in Ghana and have not been repatriated to their home countries. The ECOWAS nationals filed a legal action at the Human Rights Division of the High Court in Accra against the government of Ghana, alleging unlawful detention.
I think that agreement has been activated, and a first batch of 14 nationals came. Several of them were Nigerian brothers. They opted to go back home, and so we facilitated, we put them on buses, to be able to go back home. One of them was a Gambian who it's not as easy. You have to get him an air ticket to be able to facilitate his travel. So what we've done is contacted their embassy to let them know of his presence so that they can facilitate his return to Gambia.
The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, has backed a suit by some 11 West African nationals over their detention in Ghana. Speaking on New Day on TV3, the Commissioner of CHRAJ, Joseph Wathau, says the suit is key in ensuring clarity, as many grey areas in the Memorandum of Understanding brought them to the country.
I've listened to the Foreign Affairs Minister. He says they have an MOU with the Trump administration, and of course to accept deportees through Ghana temporarily to transit them to third countries. Now, my concern is if that MOU does not measure up to the treaties and conventions which Ghana has ratified in terms of how such deportees should come into Ghana, then we'll have a difficulty.
Galamseyers on the Ankobra River in the western region have begun to employ supernatural tactics to evade the illegal mining task force.
It is true that no land is truly empty. It belongs to the chiefs. However, as spirits reside upon it, we must first consult the priest to understand the necessary rituals for a site before any work can commence. Since it was Almighty God who created all that is under the earth, including gold, I do not subscribe to the local spirituality and rituals required before mining. This is based on my observation of numerous individuals who performed.
The Member of Parliament for Korle Klottey, Dr. Zaneto Agyemang Rollins, has called on the Transport Minister and the President to urgently intervene and stop private individuals from taking over the Abuja CMB market. Market women and drivers who have been operating in that enclave for decades petitioned the President on Tuesday after what they describe as forceful eviction from the land.
The reality of it is the CMB Abuja enclave is one that holds a very key part of commerce in Greater Accra. Also, a very important part of our food chain in an urban center, because most of the food that comes in from the hinterland actually arrives at the Abuja CMB market. And so what I would like to do is stand unequivocally and to condemn what is happening in this enclave, because it is very clear that this land is state land and should not be taken over by private individuals, especially when we are not sure who is giving the permission.
Tributes have been pouring in as the Asante Kingdom laid to rest its revered Queen Mother, Nana Kunedu Yadom III, marking the culmination of a week of funeral rites. The final burial ceremony is being held at the Sacred Brahman Royal Mausoleum and climaxes months of observances for the Asante Hima, who passed away in August at the age of 98. Over 300 specialist nurses, including an average of 50 intensive care unit staff, each month have left the Kolebu Teaching Hospital between January and June this year in search of greener pastures. The growing exodus of nurses is crippling operations at Ghana's premier referral facility. These and more came to light during a needs assessment visit by the administrator of the Ghana Medical Care Trust Fund.
When you sit outside, you don't appreciate exactly what happens in Kolebu. So I'm happy that at the end of the day, we had the time with them and went round with them, and it has helped us. And the Mahama Cares simply cannot operate without doing the needs assessment of these facilities. We need to know what they need so far as the equipment are concerned, the ones that are working, the ones that needs to be replaced, the ones that needs to be worked on. And I think that this tour has really opened our eyes to a lot of the situations that are ongoing so far as the Kolebu Teaching Hospital is concerned.
Oh, there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on YouTube as well. You can connect with us. We're live on X and TV3 Ghana on X as well as on 3 News on YouTube. And as always, probably brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil Kumtumtum Preco. Coming up next year on Ghana Tonight, the former Electoral Commission chairperson, Madame Charlotte Osei, has revealed the personal threats and attacks she endured while serving as Ghana's Electoral Commissioner, including an attempt by political party supporters to set her father's house on fire. Yeah, that's the extent of the threats that she was faced with. Now, this is a matter that has generated some reactions, concerns, and also suggestions to ensure that there is some level of safety for actors in this particular sensitive offices. And she's indicated that, in fact, she was speaking at the 2025 Democracy Dialogues in Accra, organized by the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation, that's the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Charlotte Osei described her experience as both difficult and deeply personal during that period as the chair of the Electoral Commission. Take a look.
I wouldn't say the phone calls and the pressure were the issues. Most people know I'm quite stubborn. So the kind of calls you think I received, I probably did not even receive because they knew I would not be amenable. The cost was really on a very personal level. Attacks on my family, concerns about the safety of my children and my wider family. There were a lot of lies, and so the whole fabric of the family was affected. It's either they were worrying for themselves or they were constantly worrying about your own safety. My dad was still alive at the time, so that created other challenges. There was a time that a political party mob surrounded my dad's house, that they were going to burn it down because of actions they felt I had taken. So those were the kinds of personal pressures that, as a woman, as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, as a sister, you have to deal with. So those ones were more worrying than the pressure of people calling you to say, do this. I mean, if they say do it and it's not in line with the law, it's an easy answer. I wouldn't do it because it's not in line with the law. So that didn't really bother me too much.
That's troubling to say the least. That's Madam Charlotte Osei, the former chairperson of the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Ghana. And thankfully, I've been joined on Zoom by Professor Bafo Ajimendia. He's a governance expert, former senior advisor to the United Nations on governance matters. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Professor Bafo Ajimendia, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And you were there at this Democracy Dialogues 2025, organized by the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation. That was yesterday, and we sat on the same row. You hear Charlotte Osei make that concern about how political actors sometimes can take their passion to a different level, and the threats that she was exposed to as a result of doing her work as chair of the Electoral Commission, to the extent of facing threats in her family as well. A late father, political party supporters surrounded his house, threatening to burn it down. Concerning, to say the least, is it not?
Absolutely. It's a very critical point about elections, not only in Ghana, but I think across the African continent. So far, if you look at elections across the continent, all the time we do hear of incidents of violence in different ways, some serious, some not so serious, attempts to subvert the integrity of the process, many, many things. So elections being critical to democratic practice, I think needs to be sanitized in such a way that outcomes will not be contested by competing political parties. So I do agree that elections require special attention in all emerging democracies.
And it's a very, very important issue that you break about what has been, and Prof, if you could kindly reposition it for me, because there's a little break in the connection to you, so that we have some clarity to the point that you were making. But then you reference the safety and the integrity of elections. It's an important point because Madame Charlotte Osei made reference and in fact raised concern about what, in her view, the continental bodies, the ECOWAS and the AU, can do and should do to protect the integrity of elections. And this is it. She indicated that, one, in her view, ECOWAS and the AU hide behind quiet diplomacy in the face of flawed elections and constitutional manipulation, while showing greater boldness in condemning military takeovers. I mean, this is one that has to be paid attention to. I ask this because you have been a member of a number of these ECOWAS groups that go to monitor elections, election observers, EU election observers, ECOWAS election observers. You've been part of them. What else has to be done beyond the quiet diplomacy that we see the sub-regional and the continental body engage in when it comes to elections?
I've participated in international election observation for some time, not recently, but between 1997 and 2008. I've been to at least 6 or 7 or 8 African countries, and I've seen different ways African countries have these elections. And I'm also a participant in international observer groups, not the ECOWAS, but I have participated in the Commonwealth group, at least 2 big countries. Then this organization in Washington, NDI, have been with them to observe elections in about 3 or so other African countries. But let me say that the way I see it, what is of prime importance to these observer groups is to ensure peace in these countries where we go to observe. So that even at times when there's evidence of gross violations of the electoral rules, seldom will you have these groups coming out boldly to condemn them for the sake of not, provoking violence or provoking the anger of government, opposition parties, or wherever. So they are always acting in a kind of a moderate way in order not to. Because certainly, I'm not sure of any African country where electoral conduct has not been, at least there have not been any attempts to manipulate or to influence in one way or the other. So the priority of election observers, the groups like you mentioned, ECOWAS, AU, as well as the Commonwealth, which I used to work with them, I think that is the truth from my perspective. But having said that, it's also important that these groups find a way to help these countries to overcome the challenges of elections, not merely to wait and go on observe and make pronouncements, because they know too well the deficits in electoral systems in most African countries. Look, when I was in Cameroon back in August 2004, I was sent by the Commonwealth. The system in place in Cameroon is the strangest system I've ever seen. But I was sent by the Commonwealth to go support they call it National Election Observatory, to train the officers and help them to develop some models for deployment of observers and all. But looking at the electoral system, you can understand why since 1982, President Biya has been in power till today. When I went there, he was just around 73, 74 years old. As we speak, the man is 93 years old and he's seeking re-election this coming October. So ask yourself, how is it possible for this man to win every single election in the country? It's all because of the system they have created. So if I'm interested in going to help Cameroon, I'll be interested in helping them to recraft the system. Of course, if the government will allow them, you see. So I'm citing this example to illustrate how problematic some of these electoral systems are. That's one thing. The other thing, though, having said that, it's also important to understand that the presence of election observers by itself is very crucial for certain countries to have discipline. When I was in Zimbabwe, May 2000, that is when the so-called veterans, the militants were beating and killing the so-called white farmers. Whenever we appeared on any farm where there was that trouble, everything was quiet. And even those we met who were so-called the veterans, they would come and say, oh, no, we are not beating anybody. They were pleading. So it also taught me that, in fact, the presence of international observers in certain countries, perhaps not in all countries, in certain countries do help to bring some peace and calm to these areas. So I think, one, it depends on the political system or the electoral system in place. And then, of course, the people and their parties and their politicians had also played the game. But I will not rule out the importance of these observers, but I do agree with Madame said, that in fact, these observer groups, especially the ECOWAS and the AU, should begin to focus more on the systems that are in place and engage the political parties and their leaders prior to the elections for a certain basic understanding to occur. I know in Ghana, for instance, during Charles' tenure, ECOWAS came and met the party, their leadership and all. I know, and even forcing them to sign a peace agreement as if that would prevent violence or conflict or anything of the sort. But these are some of the efforts these groups make to ensure that there is peace during and after the elections.
I see. And you reference Cameroon, that Cameroon you say is the strangest experience you've ever had as an election observer. Many who have expressed very real concerns about what is happening. But that country is not alone when you talk about those strange things you experienced. Is democracy under threat on the continent with what we are seeing now?
I did listen to some of the comments our president made at the Democracy Dialogue, which was hosted by Goodluck's Foundation from Nigeria. And I can understand why the president would say that. Why he say it can collapse if you don't take care. Because, look, even a country like the United States, that used to be the model for most of us, today is under more serious threat than even democracies in African countries. The reason why perhaps we are all concerned is that, at least from my perspective, we started on the wrong footing. We embraced democracy without question. Our forefathers who fought for our independence and embraced democratic practice immediately did not examine the whole system in terms of this practice to determine what needs to be changed, modified, and what needs to be adapted or adopted, and so on and so forth. We just took it and embraced it. If I look at the challenges of democracy today, I'm quick to say, look, perhaps we made certain fundamental issues here. When you talk of a system that is itself divisive, especially if you adopt democratic practice and decide to create within it the practice to be exclusive, that is to say, a winner takes all. Knowing too well the kind of history, the kind of culture and traditions that you have, and with no regard to that, and the people that you are going to rule over, then democracy is going to deepen the divisions that we have. So for me, when in our country, our dear country, when we are struggling to find responses to certain political challenges and all, I say, look at the system we have. You cannot bring to this a society such as Ghana, especially most South African countries, DRC and others that have had serious conflicts, where you solve the problem by imposing democracy, which says, if I win 51, everything is mine, and you have to go to be in opposition for 4 or 5 years. I mean, that is not, for me, it doesn't make sense, given the conditions and the circumstances of this particular country. So in the same way, I'm saying that perhaps right from the beginning, if we have the presence of mind, we could have decided to examine, put democratic practice into critical kind of analysis without needlessly going to the West and adopting their practice and just using them in a situation where things are different. And by the way, let me be clear. I am not doubting the relevance of democracy. I'm here talking about democratic practice, which is different from democratic principles. The principles are universal. The practice must be according to your circumstance, your history, your culture, and everything. Today, as we speak, everybody is beginning to see with the upsurge of traditional leadership in this country, that in itself could be a threat to the way we practice our democracy. Democracy that centralizes power at the center and make all the other places dependent almost exclusively on the center. That is to say, having such a strong executive that even in the districts, nothing functions without, getting something from the central government. So I think we have to be looking at these things to ensure that when we talk of democratic practice in its true sense, we should be looking at the grassroots democracy where people in their own localities will have the capacity to determine to a large extent their own destiny in terms of their development and other things, rather than everything being cooked in Accra and then being dished out to all parts of the country. That's why people are now so dependent on the central government. So dependent.
Indeed.
President Mahama during his first tenure, went to Western region somewhere. I remember this vividly because for me it was very striking. On his tour, somewhere in the Western region, as you know, at the Durban, the chief will stand up and plead with the president what they need and all. What this Omahini told the president, President Mahama, this is during his first tenure, was that, Mr. President, my people, even where we can go and leave our leg, that is to say toilet, like the Kujaya night, that town was asking a president of the republic for what? For toilets. And the president cleverly told the Omahini, Nana, this one, they go to your district assembly. They are responsible for that. But the fact that the chief asked the president for toilet meant that the district assembly has not been providing that for them. You see, so if the president means it, then it means that we have to take decentralization seriously so that people in their own localities can be empowered to take charge of their development rather than falling on the central government all the time for their progress.
And I do appreciate
These
this.
are some of the deficits I find in democracy.
The kind of system that we're practicing. I do appreciate this. Very important issues that you raised there. Professor Bafo Ajimendia, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this diagnosis for us and the attention that needs to be paid to the deficiencies that you identified in there. Fortunately, we're in the process of reviewing our constitution as whether these issues you identified would find some attention in them. Is one that we'll see how the coming days will play out. Thank you. He is a governance expert and also a former United Nations senior advisor on governance. Professor Bafo Ajimendia, thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, the Member of Parliament for the Klote-Kole constituency, Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rollins, is urging the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, to investigate the alleged takeover of the Accra CMB Abuja market land by private developers. Why EOCO on the matter of the alleged takeover of land? Well, Dr. Zaneto Ajiman is going to be joining us shortly on Zoom. We have a conversation with her. But earlier, she made that call to the Economic and Organized Crime Office to investigate the alleged takeover of the Accra CMB Abuja market land by private developers. Her call comes in the wake of a protest on Tuesday. We're going to put the videos on the screen right now. This Tuesday protest by traders and transport unions in the CMB enclave who accuse private developers of encroaching on land belonging to the Ghana Railway Development Authority. Now, traders say the development has displaced many of them onto the streets, exacerbating the traffic congestion and creating serious safety risks. You recall, just a little over a week ago, fortunately, 3 people died when a metro bus, the bus, ran into some traders not too far away from this location. Let's hear from them, the protest a couple of days ago.
Assembly the Yafa, the Yabaka, Yenimida, Ye Johnny, a lorry station, I Jeffrey and Sam. Yenim say what Papa or Maimu. I didn't see at the end some Gun Krataso and Penny Foko. I'm Penny A in a name singing about the Krata, the free and Sam. What say a boss, or the command Penny? No one shall know what the whole Juma at the Amaya. What say a boss, and get before Yawaha on Pamia and my Ghana, Niho. Wasa say bosse, adrama for Ghana, Niho. Ani ti bosse Ghana, adrama for, ani ajodi for, yanka ya kumanto ya yam, ani adia, ayasia masio, ayobintio, yadi manise, yadi asam.
So those are the traders. If I know GPRTU, and then also traders who play their trade in this Accra CMB Abuja market area. They are protesting. There's been said to be an alleged takeover of the lands by private developers over the last 8 years. Now, joining us on Zoom right now is a member of parliament for the Klote constituency, Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rollins. Good evening, madam. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope you're doing well as well.
We're hanging in there, keeping body and soul together. Thank you.
Great. Now, first off, we saw the protest by the GPRTU and traders a couple of days ago over the alleged takeover of the CMB Abuja market land by the private individuals. What briefing have you received on this matter as a member of parliament for this area?
To be very honest, this has been a long-standing issue, and over the last 8 years, 8 years prior, while I was a member of parliament in opposition, this was something that always came up where people's structures were being demolished, people were being evicted from the area, and in the name of certain private individuals who were claiming ownership to the land. Now, the reason why, for me, this was problematic was after having heard repeated complaints about what was going on and the agitation over that particular area, I actually asked the question on the floor of Parliament to the Minister of Railways at the time. This was in let me just check the date. It was in 2018, yes, in March. And the response that the minister gave very clearly was that this was railways land and it had not been sold, that no portion of the land had been sold and only a specific area had been leased out to a company, and that company had the mandate to build quarters for the railways workers, and then I think part of it was supposed to be for some shopping, that particular enclave, but there was no word about any of that land being sold. And yet over the last 8 years, many more people in that area were being actually evicted, structures being demolished in the name of people claiming to have ownership to the land. And this created a lot of angst in the reason why this is problematic is there's a huge amount of commerce that happens in that particular enclave. There are thousands of people who live and work there, whose livelihoods are there. And most importantly, a lot of the food that comes into Greater Accra, or at least into Accra from the hinterland, actually comes there. We have so many, there's we have the cargo stations where they actually bring in the big trucks. Then you have the trotro stations as well, where they obviously, provide means of transportation for people from the constituency into various areas of Greater Accra and beyond. And so the role that this particular area plays cannot be overemphasized. It's key in terms of our food security in the region, but it's also key in terms of the support of the informal sector and the number of livelihoods that it supports. And over the years, whether it's, let me not give conjecture on the reasons why this particular group of people has been targeted, but the bottom line has been that the land is railways land, it's state land, and there should not be private individuals claiming access to land that has not been sold based on the records provided by the minister as of 2019. And last year as well, I was petitioned by the drivers union again on this particular issue regarding the fact that there was, some individuals threatening to evict them at the time, and at which time I also wrote a petition to the minister supporting their request to me for their pleas to be heard. And so the demonstration or the protest that we had this year was not a protest against the government. It was one asking for people to be heard. Where over the years their plight is being ignored, people are being squeezed out of the area. There's no alternative being provided to them, and they're being asked to leave. This is a place that they've occupied since the 80s. So this is something that is not just dear to my heart. This is very important to the livelihoods of thousands of people and very key to our food security. So of course I couldn't just ignore this matter.
What exactly is IOCO being called upon to investigate in this matter of alleged takeover or sale of this Accra CMB Abuja land? What is IOCO, in fact, what are you expecting IOCO to look into? Reason why you're petitioning or calling on them?
Well, I think it's quite simple. IOCO has a mandate to investigate anything relating to economic crimes, and we have an issue where IOCO's mandate now is about following the money. Now, if this is railways land, if the land has not been sold, who is selling it? Who gave them the permission to sell it? Who is buying it? We need to actually figure all of that out, because there's clearly something going on that's untoward. And the only way to have some finality and clarity to what's happening is to have a thorough investigation done. And I think IOCO is best placed to actually do something like that. Besides, they're actually not that far away from the area where this is actually happening.
Absolutely. So private developers have come to say that the land was sold to them. Is that the information you have? And why exactly was this land sold to them? Do you have it?
Several private individuals have claimed ownership of various parts of the land. So it's not just one person. We have different people who are claiming that the land belongs to them, that they have been given the land, that they, permission to build on certain parts of the land. And it just seems a little bit unusual. And for, in previous years, people were claiming affiliation with government as the reason why they could. And the drivers and most of the traders there felt very helpless and very much harassed by what was going on. And I cannot, now that our government is in power, I cannot sit idly by while the livelihoods and security of these people who are my constituents is threatened.
I see. So the main issue you want clearly settled or established is who owns the land, whether indeed it's been sold to private developers and under what circumstance, within which period, or whether this land is still under the ownership of the Ghana Railway Development Authority. That's the main issue for establishment, is it not?
And we're looking for transparency on this issue. If it's been sold to whom, when was it sold? Because clearly some kind of stakeholder engagement should have been had, with clarity on exactly what's going on. If it's state land and people are there and they've been given permission to be there, the drivers are actually paying a levy to occupy the space that they're in. So in that case, we need to understand if they're being asked to pay a certain amount of money as part of a kind of a rental agreement to be on those premises. They're not there as freeloaders. They're actually doing that as part of their business. And I think that we really want clarity. This is railways land, and the last I checked, nothing had changed in terms of the ownership. So let's have some clarity and transparency on what exactly is being done with the state land.
I see, but are you aware that some of these private developers who claim this land has been sold to them, different portions of the land have been sold to them, have over the last few weeks gone to threaten to evict these traders and the transport unions that do their work there at this Abuja market, that land area? Are you aware of these threats over the last few weeks?
this has been happening on an ongoing basis. And as a matter of fact, the MCE was approached and he has refused to give a permit on this because we need to have clarity on this. So even at the level of the municipal assembly, granting of a permit has become an issue because there's not enough transparency around what has happened with the land in this CMB Abuja area. And we really need to get to the bottom of it. And in order to ensure that it's being done properly, I think IOCO really has the mandate and is well placed to be able to do that. And that's why I mentioned, the involvement of IOCO on this particular matter. We have to find out who's paying what and why. If the land indeed has been sold, then we need to have transparency and the people need to be informed about that.
I see. And have you, beyond this call you make on television and the call that you make to IOCO, is there any official notification to the Economic and Organized Crime Office on this matter beyond this appeal, or you're going to reiterate this call to them to look into this matter tonight?
Well, I have made it repeatedly, and I think that the next step is to actually make that call officially. But I think the bottom line is that there are things that are happening. I believe that the president has taken a position on issues regarding the corruption around state assets, and I think this is no different. When we're looking at the issue of corruption, it's not just how it affects certain state agencies, but it's also about how it affects the livelihoods and the rights of citizens of this country who are just trying to do their best to survive.
Well, I thank you very much. It's one that we'll keep an eye on, see how the coming days will look like on this, and notify us if IOCO is eventually petitioned and what is going to happen with this. Because clearly the traders, the transport unions who ply their trade there at this Accra CMB Abuja market are not too happy about the abuse and the threats that they're faced with as we speak. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Zaneto Rollins.
Thank you so very much, Nai. Have a good evening. And
do have a good evening, too. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rollins is a member of parliament for the Korle constituency. And that this area, this Accra CMB Abuja market, that's part of the constituency as well. And so it's one that we're keeping an eye on how things are playing out there. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, the Teacher and Education Workers Union, that's TEWU, they've declared an indefinite nationwide strike beginning Friday, September 19, 2025, which is tomorrow, really. Their reason consists of conditions of service and other related matters on why they say that over time they have not been satisfied with the engagements between them and government, reason why they want some more than this. Let's take a look at this. This is a release that came through earlier today from the Teachers and Educational Workers Union announcing this indefinite strike action effective Friday, 19 September 2025. They say all their members across the country are directed to stay at home. Don't go to work. That's what they're saying until further notice. And this decision, they give details, has become inevitable due to government and employer institutions' persistent failure to address long-standing concerns of non-teaching staff despite exhausting all laid down legal and procedural requirements. Go on to say, and these are the demands that they are making. Immediate signing of conditions of service for one, Teachers and Education Workers Union of TUC, Ghana, and all junior staff of the public and technical universities. 2, non-teaching staff of the Ghana Education Service, staff of Ghana Library Authority, staff of Museums and Monuments Board, inclusion in payments of GES non-teaching staff for continuous professional development allowance. That's one of the demands that they are making. They are also making the demand for the resolution of promotion grievances, including staff who passed interviews but remained unpaid on new scales, staff placed on scales but denied official promotion letters, staff who have received no communication after their interviews as well. They say the government, particularly the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, accountability, the Fair Wages must conclude and sign all conditions of service without further delays or excuses. That's one of the demands that they are making as well. And then all employers should note that it shall constitute an unfair labor practice should any employer prevent or intimidate any of their members, non-teaching staff of GES, public and technical universities, Ghana Library Authority, Ghana Museums and Monuments Board from exercising their lawful right to strike. Now, this is one that essentially is going to have a serious impact on public sector and the delivery of public good. They've said they've exercised patience and restraint. They followed due process and exhausted all legal requirements under the Labour Act of Ghana. The responsibility for the disruption of the industrial peace in the education sector rests squarely. They say government is to blame for this and their agencies. We're going to go for this quick break. When we're back, Austin Game is a labor expert. He's going to be joining us on this conversation after this quick break. Stay with us.
time frame to ensure that when you complete an agreement, you should sign. If they are not doing so, go and report them to the appropriate body. And the appropriate body is the National Labour Court. Why did we put a commission together? And the commission is not a government baby. It's a tripartite body made up of employers, made up of workers, and the chairman of the commission is raised by both unions and the employer association, not government. The president's duty is to just swear them in. So I'm surprised that they said they have exhausted all the provisions in the law. It is not true. The very rule that governs the procedure of the negotiation is completely neglected, if they even have one at all.
We'll see how the coming days will look like on this. They're on an indefinite strike beginning tomorrow, so we'll see whether this recommendation you make will fall on the listening ears. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Game.
You're most welcome.
Austin Game is a labor expert joining us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your time. Join us same time tomorrow for another conversation. My name is Alfred Ocansey. And just to remind you that tomorrow is the start of a weekend on TV3, exclusive coverage of the Ghana Premier League matches, live only and exclusively on TV3. And we have the pre-match shows as well to discuss all the matters and how the days ahead of us will be. So make a date and get updates on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on 3news.com as well. I'm Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.